I'm in Albufeira in the Marina section. I did a video before last year. It was just a drone shot, but I don't think it does any justice to it, so I'm back. Now, wouldn't it be lovely just to have a house over there overlooking the marina? So you have underneath, you have underground parking, which go through over there. We're not going to do that. Those apartments are lovely too, because above the stores, that's part of property owners, and you got a little chapel or a little church over there. Now, I also want to talk about certain things. It's this whole inflation thing that I just feel like I have to get off my chest while I show you the marina. So there you go, you got this. We could have gone through the underground parking and go straight to the marina, but we're going to go this way instead. So there seems to be this consensus that the mainstream media is propagating that raising rates lowers inflation, which is the biggest farce. Here, let me show you this. So you walk down these steps and you're down to the Marina Albufeira. So you have the things you could do, places where you could go and eat. I will leave at the end of the video a link to the video I did last year with the drone, and yeah, so this is one of the hot spots during the high season, but think about it, even on the other side, pretty colorful houses, and it's just nice to be over here. Why be in California when you could have San Diego weather in south of Portugal without hurricanes and much more accessible prices? in terms of real estate. You could live much more comfortably here if you work remotely or you are retired. See, there goes another entrance to the street. So I'm gonna get back to what we were talking about in a moment. I'm hungry. Book tours over here. Definitely recommend this. I need to do it myself. Beautiful beach with a huge algar. This is an algar. Maybe that's where the name Algarve came from, or vice versa. But an algar is a hole going onto the ocean floor. When the tide goes high, this is all filled up. The beach disappears. Henceforth, this is an algar. Any hole that looks down onto the sea is an algar. We got other tours to get there, and we got dolphins. There you go, you got dolphins. You can see dolphins. A lot of amusement for kids. Got a lot of Brits in the Algarve, so these are usually filled. Alright, so while I wait for my pizza, I just want to talk about something that's been on my mind, and it's this whole inflation garbage that they be putting on the mainstream media. And I've only seen one, maybe two other YouTubers actually get it right. Alright, so demand gets killed when you increase interest rates. By the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates, you're killing demand. How does that happen? Well, if you have higher interest rates, businesses can't get loans easier. They'll have a hard time buying stuff. Individuals, consumers, will have a hard time getting loans to purchase a car, to purchase a house. So let's do an example. For example, you got those car dealerships. How many of those cars do you actually think they were paid in cash by those car dealerships before they were sold? I would say less than 10%, and that's probably putting it mildly. So if, for example, car dealerships, forget about the supply chain issues. Let's say it's normal business, no supply chain issues because of whatever happened 2 years ago and all that stuff. Alright, so now they got to pay, I don't know, 7%, whatever the interest rate is. That's going to increase the price. The wages, I'm sorry, there's a bolt coming out. The wages are not keeping up with inflation, so people can't afford cars as easily. So you have car dealerships that can't afford stocking up as many cars, and you have the consumer who is strapped for cash and can't buy as many cars, so it kills demand. Now that works if the economy is at worst just okay. You don't raise interest rates when the economy is being obliterated just like it is right now. So, I'm not the smartest of the bunch, but I know that Jerome Powell, even if I'm smarter than him, I doubt it, but even if I am, he's got people around him that are smarter than me about the subject, because that's not my primary focus, professional, academic, whatever you want to call it, background. But I do know enough to know that that's not the way you're going to kill off inflation. Now you have Janet Yellen, Secretary of Treasury, about 3 or 4 months ago, she comes out and says, oh, this is not going to be a decade thing. And I was just taken aback by that, because you see, you could, if you pay close attention, you don't even have to pay too much close attention, you just have to pay attention. Nobody at the time was even talking about a decade-long inflation problem. She just came out, and I think she slipped, and she said it's not going to be a decade-long inflation thing. And I was like, when she said that, I was like, all right, they're thinking in terms of a decade. So if I was you, I wouldn't expect inflation to go down anytime soon, at all. And what they're doing with the interest rates, it's not doing a darn thing. You only raise interest rates to kill demand if you have a strong economy, like they did in the late 70s, early 80s. All right, you had the baby boomers too. You got 2 generations of baby boomers. You have the ones, I believe they were born before World War II, and then the second generation of baby boomers were born after World War II. So though that generation was coming in, and they were increasing up demand. That's one of the reasons, aside from the whole Nixon thing, taking the dollar off the gold standard in 1971. That was probably the main reason why there was a raise in inflation. But at that time, the U.S. was producing stuff. We had factories. I remember a little kid, and I couldn't walk more than, I'm going to go out on a limb here, more than 1,500, I would say 1,000 feet, without seeing a factory. I go back to my neighborhood, and there's nothing. There's no factories. There's hardly even warehouses, much less factories. We were producing stuff. There was a lot of jobs, and so by lowering interest rates at that point, it made sense because it indirectly, not directly, lowered inflation. In this case, there are no jobs. It's being taken, the little ones, all the manufacturing jobs, they're gone. Even the ones, the research development jobs, like in pharmaceutical and defense contract jobs, a lot of them shipped. So you don't have jobs to kill. So it's just going to kill the economy. Raise the dollar. And that's a whole different video. I would like to talk about how the euro sucks, and at the end of the day, the dollar is the best currency out of all the crappy ones that are out there. Not that the dollar is a good currency, but compared to the other ones, it's better. So the main question is, then if interest rates don't do anything, which they haven't, I don't have to say that to you. Has inflation, wherever you are listening to this, has inflation lowered? No. Has inflation increased? Yes. So how can we do something about inflation? Well, let's start with this. Prior to 2020, prior to COVID, thank you. Prior to COVID, banks didn't had to have at least, I believe it was $1 for every $16 issued in debt. Meaning, if a bank lent out let's say $16,000 loan for a car, it had to have at least $1,000 in reserves. Now it doesn't have to have any. I don't know what it was before 2020, right before 2020, but I do know prior to the global financial crisis, there was a ratio of $1 for every 16, which that in itself is crazy. Meaning, if every person went to the bank at the same time on the same day, and that's just for $500 from their bank account, I don't think any bank would have enough money to give out to all their customers $500, a lousy $500. Okay, so when you have a situation when banks don't need any money, now it's zero. They don't need to have any money in their reserves to issue debt. So when you have a situation where banks can lend out money without having any money on the reserves, what does that happen? It just increases inflation. There is no mechanism in place where it constrains them from issuing more debt. So if I go to a bank today, the bank doesn't need to have any money in the reserves. I could ask for $1 million loan, get approved, I have good credit, I have some collateral, whatever. They give me $1 million. Well, another $1 million was printed because they don't have to have anything in the reserves. So that's one very easy way to kill inflation. The other one is obvious. Everyone knows you got to stop printing as much money. The Federal Reserve and other central banks, they have a little scheme where, for every note that's printed, I should have brought a dollar with me, but those notes are not, it says Federal Reserve notes. You don't own them, you got to give them back at some point. You could hold them in your house for as long as you want, but at some point in time, it's not yours. That thing is never yours, and you got to pay with interest. So you can't be exponentially printing out more than what you can bring in terms of tax revenue. For those of you in the U.S., if you think that your federal taxes are going for infrastructure projects and all that stuff, I think I read at some point, don't quote me on this, but over 90% was to pay back to the Federal Reserve, which is not even a government entity, and it's owned by these private banks. So, and for it to work, you got to keep on issuing debt. The problem is, it's been speeding up at an alarming pace. So, just to keep it simple, why there needs to be more debt created without stopping is the following.
English?
Yeah.
Answer?
All right. Thanks.
Enjoy your meal.
Here's a pizza of let's make this as simple as possible. You have a family, and you have a bank in an island. Well, the man needs to feed his family, so he goes to the bank at the island, asks for $100, has to pay it back at the end of the year with 3% annual interest rate. So at the end of the year, he goes to other islands, uses the $100, makes the $100 back, and survives buying other goods to feed his family. And at the end of the year, he's like, here's the $100. But the bank only printed $100, so now they got to print $3 more so he can pay for the inflation. So it's got to keep on going and going and going. Debt's got to keep on getting bigger. But the problem is when you have more money coming in, going out, than money coming in, taxation, then you're just going to keep on getting inflation, and it's getting to the point where they know what they're doing. I mean, I'm not smarter than all of those people, and they're just feeding lies to you. So that's pretty much it. And I needed to get that off my chest and point you in the right direction. Sometimes I really feel like calling the senators and being on their ass about this whole situation, because they need to have reserves, the banks. If the banks had reserves, not 116, that's a joke, because if that would solve anything, there wouldn't be the global financial crisis to begin with. It would have to be more something like for every $10 lent out, you had to have at least $1 in reserves. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Deuces.